Somehow I get them to trust us enough to show up at a location on a specific date at a specific time, and then it just goes from there. So,
do they require you to have a landline to do that, or
they probably should?
I mean, it really is just like, it's like a Craigslist deal waiting to go bad, but somehow they just trust us on it.
Welcome to Recording Studio Rockstars. I'm Lid Shaw, and this is the podcast created to help you become a rock star of the recording studio. Hello, rock stars. It's Lid Shaw, your host for Recording Studio Rockstars. I created this show to introduce you to real-world recording professionals to hear their stories and learn from their experiences so that you can take your records to the next level and be a rock star of the studio yourself. Today, I have a special show for you with two very cool guests, Stephen Turney and Michael Hardesty. These guys produce, engineer, and mix both records and music videos. Together, they created 24 Hour Records, a YouTube web series that handpicks a team of musicians, locks them in a studio, and tasks them with writing and recording 3 original songs in 24 hours. Each episode is brought to you from a different recording studio, and even the Toy Box Studio has been home to one of these creative all-nighters. I'll include a link to that video in the show notes, of course. The entire bleary-eyed, coffee-addled musical journey is captured on film, record, and photos. Then the footage is distilled down to its very essence to create one 12-minute episode and 3 music videos. 24 Hour Records is also part of the larger Made In Network, an eclectic YouTube network pairing up cool music-themed shows like 24 Hour Records, Find the Beauty, and Music Video Sins. Stephen Turney is a producer and engineer based out of Nashville, Tennessee. Originally hailing from the great state of Texas, Stephen moved to Tennessee to attend the Belmont University recording program and has been making records ever since. Musically, he's a pianist by trade, an engineer by necessity, and a producer by proxy. Stephen has also worked with me at the Haybell Studio at Bonnaroo and various records at the Toy Box Studio. Michael Hardesty is from Ohio, originally having also moved to Nashville for the Belmont University recording program. He is the production director at Made In Network and continues to produce and engineer in the studio, as well as being the head engineer for the Bonnaroo Haybell Studio. Thanks so much for joining us on Recording Studio Rockstars. Stephen and Michael, are you ready to rock?
Yeah!
Awesome.
Nothing but the finest. We're ready to rock.
Absolutely.
Super cool. Really cool to have you guys here. I've done my best to introduce you and say what I know about you and what you guys do, but can you introduce yourselves and let us know who you are?
My name is Michael Hardesty. I did come to Nashville to study recording at Belmont University and spent the first couple years of life after school making records, and then created 24 Hour Records along with Steven and got roped into the Made In Network and have really kind of focused my efforts on expanding what I work on creatively to include not only music, but video and graphic production. So that's where we're at today.
Awesome, dude. That sounds exciting.
I hope so. I hope
super
so.
excited.
I hope so.
He's enthused.
You guys got to
about
believe me. Steven's, a.k.a. Megahertz, is a super exciting dude.
He is exciting.
He's just holding back. He's going to deliver
You don't
in
want
a
to
moment
get him,
here. It's going to be over the top.
You don't want to get him rowdy.
One day it'll all come to fruition and I will be more excited than everyone else combined.
All at once.
Wait, did I just call you Steven?
Yeah, Steven, aka Megahertz.
Nice.
Yeah, that's all wrong.
It's all right.
Michael's
You got the Brad Jones and Robin Eaton syndrome.
Yeah. All right. Awesome.
It's
Well,
Stephen
so we're
Hardesty.
off to a really good start here. This began with the printer not working. So, Stephen, tell us about yourself, man.
All right. I'm Stephen Turney. I'm a producer and engineer here in Nashville. So Michael and I went to school together, and we started making records together. As soon as we got out of school, I say records, maybe like 1 record a year and living below the poverty line, and mostly doing that and being uninsured, all those good things.
Poverty line's overrated, dude.
Yeah,
It's overrated.
it's amazing what you can get by with if you cram a lot of people into a house and just keep rent real low and break lots of laws. So did that for a few years, and now, fortunately, I'm above the poverty line and still just making records and doing 24-hour records with Michael, and it's been good. We're making a living now.
Well, you guys want to kick us off with a little inspiration? You got any inspirational quotes you want to share with us?
yeah.
Something to get us going.
We definitely have the inspirational quotes. We've been preparing for
The
weeks on
iPhones are
this.
coming out now. It's great.
That's right.
My inspirational quote is from the Hunter S. Thompson, and it states, "I have a theory that the truth is never told during the 9 to 5 hours."
This is a good one.
Interesting.
Big win.
What about the 10 to 6 hours? Those are my favorites.
Yeah. No, I think you can tell the truth then. You're free and clear.
Well, so fill in the blanks on that one. What all does that, I mean, Hunter S. Thompson has always been known to be a little bit mysterious and
Yeah, I think he probably did more drugs and smoked more cigarettes and drank more alcohol than all of us combined. But I just take that to mean that whenever you find yourself kind of in a routine that maybe alters or suppresses a little bit of creativity, then you just got to shake it up and get back to what you were trying to do.
What about Dolly Parton? What about working 9 to 5? What about that?
Have you guys ever seen that movie 9 to 5 that uses
Oh
that as
yeah,
the theme
dude,
song?
totally.
Oh man, I watched that thing like 2 or 3 times in a row when I was a little kid, when I was stuck, when my brother was at like a little Primacare emergency thing and I was stuck there. I watched 9 to 5 over and over. I watched 9 to 5 probably from 9 to 5.
That and Harper Valley PTA doubleheader right there, right?
What is? I don't even know what that one is.
Wow.
I can't really remember. It was so long ago. I can't remember if that was a movie or a TV show, but
So we're really all about women's rights in the 70s is what we're trying to say. That's kind of our specialty.
Yeah.
yes. I don't want to jump right into the hard questions yet. I want to
Wait, we missed
dig in a little
Steven's
bit more.
inspirational quote.
Oh yeah, right.
Oh yeah, yeah.
We got 2 inspirational
Never
quotes.
had 2 guests before. I don't know how to do this.
We're doubly inspired today.
Well, I think I'm realizing I should do everything twice.
Just do it all twice.
Yeah.
It's just dawned on me.
All right. Yeah, okay, here we go. My inspirational quote is from Rainer Maria Rilke, who's a poet who I'm a big fan of. And this is the quote. It is, "Surely all art is the result of one's having been in danger, of having gone through an experience all the way to the end where no one can go any further." Makes you think, man.
I'm stumped, dude. I'm stumped.
Yeah.
So help me out.
Dude, it's just you gotta keep pushing, man. You gotta go to the unexplored.
So the danger is quitting.
I think so. Danger is a life of boredom, maybe. At least for me, I think.
Tell us a little bit about 24-hour records. Tell us a little bit about the beginning of that for you guys. Did somebody show up and give you a manual and say, well, here's this idea I had for 24-hour records, and I've spelled it all out for you. Why don't you guys take it over?
Yeah, that would have been really nice.
That would have been really nice.
No, we started it. We had an artist friend who, like ourselves, was so broke but still wanted to be creative and make music, approach us about the definition of a day rate at a studio and what does that mean. Is a day rate 8 hours? Is it 12 hours? Or perhaps is it 24 hours? And approached us to produce and engineer a project for him that maximized that day rate. Because
what about a day if you're on a ship nearing the speed of light?
Well, that was the next step. If we didn't do 24-hour records, we were going to do light speed records.
Speed records.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, so that's next. But yeah, he wanted to get in the studio and try to figure out how many songs he could track and only pay for 1 day at that studio. So that actually never happened, but it's a cool story. He
was in our very first session.
Yeah, he was in our very first session. Unfortunately, his specific idea didn't come to fruition, but we did try to say, well, what if we took that one step further and, bring musicians together that had never met and then also, make them write on the spot. And that's kind of how it came to fruition. Everything after that was just us figuring it out along the way. If we had the manual, like Lidge spoke about, that would have saved us a lot of time. I probably could have, Stephen and I could have slept more. But that's never how anything comes together, is it?
Well, I don't know, man.
Not in my life.
Stephen, will you describe what 24-hour records is? A little bit. I mean, I gave it a pretty brief cursory description.
Yeah. I mean, it is, so what you were talking about was that we get a few musicians and get them in the studio together. And then from that, it's kind of just a free-for-all as far as whatever they want to do and what they want to write. And really, Michael and I are there primarily to make sure that there aren't any boundaries or any borders that like are pushing back on people. So it's that, you know, they get in and one of us is engineering, or another one of the guys that we work with, maybe we've hired on for the day to help us out. And so everything's ready for them to roll. You know, if they want to plug in some synth that's up in the corner of the studio, like we make sure it's ready to go like quick, so that if they have an idea, they can just jump into it. I think that like in a lot of ways for us, when we're producing those sessions, like on the floor in the studio, is a lot less about like pushing for like a musical direction, which we will do sometimes, but it's more about like efficiency and speed, making sure people are comfortable, making sure everyone can just like jump in and immediately explore any idea that they have. Yeah. Like, you know, when we're going in there, it's not like we're spending a lot of time like dialing in sounds perfectly, because there is no time, you know, to do any of that. So you're kind of just you're going, if you have like level the tape, you're good pretty much. And then you just make it work from there.
Are there any like tried and true icebreakers? I mean, are these musicians, are they like the best of friends? Are they all in the same band? They grew up together since third grade? Or are they strangers?
Right, yeah. The majority of them are strangers, and oftentimes, you know, Stephen and I haven't even met them. The relationship kind of just starts with a phone call to them or their manager, and somehow I get them to trust us enough to show up at a location on a specific date at a specific time, and then it just goes from there. So,
do they require you to have a landline to do that, or
they probably should?
I mean, it really is just like it's like a Craigslist deal waiting to go bad, but somehow they just trust us on it.
Yeah, I can't believe that we've done 16 of these and none of them have ever went down in flames, but we have.
It is kind of amazing because, I mean, I used to get, and I'm sure you did too, get super nervous before we would go into these things. And it would just, because I kept thinking like, oh, like, is this going to be the time that everything just falls apart? And there are definitely ones that have gone better than others, but I've never afterwards been like dissatisfied with the music and not thought it was cool in its own way. It's just like they'll all be different. There are definitely ones that are not sessions that weren't fun. Right. But I'm always like, we got like what we came there to get totally. At the end.
And actually, speaking of a logistical nightmare, the session we did here, 2 artists canceled on me within 72 hours.
Those mother scratchers.
Right, yeah. So within 72 hours, I had to find 2 completely new artists that I had never talked to before those 72 hours. So that was kind of a rough one.
Yeah.
Have you ever had anybody show up and they're just like, I'm the musician for the 24-hour records?
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely had some shy members that don't really seem to get into the spirit of 24-hour records. So that's always like something I'm trying to judge on the phone, is like, are they outgoing enough to
that is something too. And I'm sure you've gotten a better feel for this, but like sometimes there'll be musicians in town or people that I'm talking to, and they'll ask about it, or they're interested in it and doing it. And like, they might be musicians I really like, but like, I can just tell that like, they're just not going to thrive in that environment. And it's just not a good idea. Cause like they're going to be unhappy with it. We're going to be unhappy with it. And it's just sort of, I think it's just a sense you pick up, like how flexible people are, like how quick on their feet they are. Mm-hmm. Because the thing is like, I mean, we've been fortunate in that we've gotten a lot of great musicians to come in on these, but musicianship isn't really the key in these kinds of things. It's more just like coming up with cool ideas and being able to just roll with something and just like try something out.
Yeah.
Just making sure they're not a narcoleptic.
Yeah,
that would be a serious.
That's the right word
that would be a
for falling
roadblock.
asleep.
Yeah, narcoleptic. That would be,
I don't think I've ever actually said narcolept, so I don't know if that's a word.
I don't know. That could be.
I mean, we knew what you meant, so I think it works.
Yeah,
glad somebody knew.
Yeah.
Well, so all right. So, do you have any icebreakers when these people show up and you need to kind of get them going? Do you guys have like little games? Do you like have like, crisscross applesauce, everybody?
No elementary school games, but a lot of times it's like the singer-songwriter circle. Everyone get in circles, share a song. It's the what have you been listening to lately question. It's the hey, it's noon. Is it okay if I crack a beer? Yeah, I'm not your mom kind of thing.
And when do you start? Do you guys go from noon to noon?
Yeah,
typically?
so typically our sessions are noon to noon. This is why I think that this type of project really only works necessarily in Nashville, is because the relationships in Nashville are so open, and everyone's so excited to be collaborative, stuff like that. So, I don't know if this project works in LA or New York, where everyone's like, from at least my experience, they're very like closed off and protective and, all that kind of stuff. So people, again, going back to Stephen's point, it's like, if we make the judgment that someone is excited enough to do this project, they come in and they're so pumped and they're so open about it that they ice break themselves.
Yeah, that's true in a lot of ways. Or Michael goes in and tries to give an awkward pep talk at the beginning, and then everyone's like, "Oh, well, we're not as awkward as this
That guy."
So,
Nice.
So now everything's okay.
Yeah, my awkward pep talks have become
I love them.
what I look forward to most.
I know.
So now there's another, at least one other key player in 24-hour records that I know of. Do you want to give a shout out to anybody else that is
Most definitely.
essential there?
Brad, our videographer, Brad Cash, videographer, director, editor, everything on that end of stuff. He is the man. I mean, we are super, super lucky to have him, because, we certainly could not possibly like afford or convince someone of his like caliber, if we were starting now, to like get on board with this without having to just give away everything to them. But Brad has been really gracious and like has just worked so hard for us. He's the man.
So that original $5 that you guys offered for him to do the first one, that's just lasted. It's stuck. You got in early.
I'm pretty sure it was a 2-for-1 margarita at Las Palmas.
Yeah, it's something like that.
So yeah, close to $5.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Well, so you guys have done a bunch of these. You've also just working at Made in Network, making records. Talk about the power of putting a team together, and like how important is it to find team players that you can grow your business with, grow your production team, your video team, or do you find that sometimes it's valuable to let go of people and like move on and find new people to work with? I mean, you don't have to name drop anybody. I'm just saying, like, what have you learned about the process?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think, with any like purely creative endeavor that's not necessarily directly tied to the financial returns, I mean, you have to bring in people that are passionate. You have to bring in people that will, go a little bit of the extra mile for you. I think certainly we're all past the point of, killing ourselves with work. But at the same time, I know that any of us could go get a 9-to-5 job that literally ends at 5, and we could work less than we do now. But that goes back to the point of...
What about a 9-to-9 job, 24?
Yeah. Oof, I mean, that's where we're at. But, and that takes, that like the mindset that we all have on our team takes certain sacrifices, both personally and then like within relationships. But, I think that everyone right now is fairly comfortable. And again, we've gotten to a good place over the 3 years that we've been existing where we work hard, but I don't think we overdo it, because when you overdo it, then you lose passion or you lose objectivity, or you just lose the ability to keep going. You burn out.
Yeah, totally. I mean, at least for now, our team is, let's see here. It's Michael and I and Brad Cash, our director, and Andrew White, who we should also mention, he is the second shooter, but he's also the main photographer. The 4 of us are kind of the core team there. And then we've got another guy, David Brewbreaker, who comes in a lot to help engineer. So a lot of times during the graveyard shift, he'll come in to kind of relieve us and keep the train rolling. He's
a relief pitcher.
Yeah, and he's great. Brew is awesome, and he's a great producer of his own right. So it always makes me feel good at 2 a.m. if I'm going to go sleep for a few hours. I don't have to worry that like nothing's going to happen. Do
what for a few hours? I thought this was 24 hours, dude.
Yeah, Michael and I, we've stayed up plenty share of our 24-hour records. So, I come totally prepared. I come with an air mattress. I've got a sleeping bag. I go find a little corner to get a few hours rest in during it. But it kind of is important for both of us to do that at some point during the session, because when everyone else gets so tired, like for the last 6 hours of the day, like that's kind of when a lot of the, producer role comes in a lot more. Because most of the time, for the first 12 to 18 hours, a lot of the musicians are pretty self-sufficient. Like they've got a lot of ideas, they're writing. Like we don't need to interfere very much or kind of like prod them along. But when it comes to the end and everyone's totally fried, like creatively and physically, then it's really great when someone can come in and take back over and like actually have a little bit of energy, listen to stuff fresh and be like, okay, cool guys, let's do this, this, and this. And then it can kind of like just keep the energy up and get things rolling again.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, that's when we like bring out the bullwhip and finish it out. Because
Michael and I have
right.
The last hour is typically the Michael and Stephen hour of power, where we go in and we just trade off playing instruments on anything that anyone has any ideas left on, and just try and hack our way through little parts that we still need. So
You guys are the last ones whose fingers aren't in pain from playing guitar.
yeah, pretty much.
Yep.
So, Michael, share with us a story of a failure along the way, something where it was just a disaster that turned into a great learning experience for you.
Yeah, which one?
Any of them.
Yeah, no, I'm joking.
So what about something just like, was there anything just hilarious that happened in the middle of the night when you guys were doing this stuff?
A lot of things.
The cops knock on the door yet?
No cops yet.
Nobody got arrested for going out and peeing on the lawn?
We definitely learned to make sure that we have that we limit the amount of alcohol that is purchased for these sessions, because there have been a couple times when people have overindulged themselves, and then it can become a little bit of a train wreck for the last few hours when you're trying to.
Thank you for
wrangle.
sparking my memory.
What are funny examples of train wrecks?
We had a session.
We probably shouldn't mention specific names, but we can.
We had a session, and it was one of the most amazing ones I think we've had.
Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah,
the four musicians came in and they formed a band, a singular entity, so quickly.
Yeah.
But man, one of the participants just killed double digits worth of beer and a good handle worth of whiskey. And
I mean, I think he was literally drinking for like 18 to 20 hours.
Yeah.
It's pretty much right. All those guys, when we got there, just cracked beers, which is great.
Yeah,
but
it's part of being in a band, right?
Yeah. But usually it's like, you have a few beers and then, you have some coffee and kind of like cool off for a little bit. Well,
usually band practice is over after 2 hours.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So this is just like the marathon band practice.
Yeah, there's a pretty hefty stack of empties.
There's like a beer every quarter mile.
Right, yeah, absolutely. So all that to say is the session ended with the studio had a bullhorn or a megaphone, excuse me. They had a megaphone, and it involved us waking up said intoxicated member with a megaphone.
Which straight over his face.
No, I mean, we did, and it took us a while to get him to wake up. There was kind of like a brief moment of panic where like, does he have alcohol poisoning? Do we need to make a move on this?
And then you were like, nah, give me a Sharpie.
Yeah.
Get the cell phone camera.
Oh, yeah. Then he started showing some signs of life.
It all turned out well, and throughout the entire process of overindulging, he said, I think, some of the most memorable lines of the entire series. So
awesome.
So it kind of worked.
Also, through all that, because like I hadn't realized how much he had until he was just like passed out by the end of the day. But he was still slaying it on his instrument.
Through
the entire. It wasn't like he just started like dropping notes and couldn't play. He was still killing it the entire time.
Performance dropped none at all. It was a feat of humanity.
Performance dropped none. That's a bumper sticker. Future bumper sticker.
That's right.
Yep.
All right, so the sun is rising. Mm-hmm. Everything's turning out to be okay. The next day is here. Do you guys have like a ritual with the sunrise or anything like that? Everybody goes outside and like chants some weird
No,
spell or something like that?
Probably should.
That would be nice. We thought about, being, kind of ritzy and getting champagne or something, but I think realistically, everyone
After all that beer.
right after all that beer.
Yeah.
No, I mean, seriously, a lot of people really will. I mean, this isn't a ritual per se, but a lot of people will definitely crack that 9 a.m. beer.
Yeah, I can see it.
To power through.
I know.
At
At
least
that point,
once,
who cares?
at least once in my life, I have poured beer into my breakfast cereal just to say that I could see that what it was like.
There you go.
It wasn't very good. I actually didn't really like
No,
it.
that's why we just skip the cereal.
Yeah. So, all right. So it's morning time. Everything's groovy. We're back in action. Tell us about a story about like a moment of success for you guys, something where it all just came together and it was just totally awesome.
Do you remember elephant chords and how well that went?
Yeah.
If I remember it correctly, it went so well that literally no one on the artist team
Yeah.
or the creative team ever went to sleep.
Yeah.
Because we were so jazzed about what was going on.
Yeah,
Like there
it
was no
was-
time for sleep.
It was super cool. I mean, I think that was like one of the sessions, like when we got to the end of it, where it's, I mean, usually at the end of those sessions, like I'm glad that like we got all the music. I feel good about it, but I'm really tired. I'm ready to go home, go to sleep. But on that one, I was just like so pleased to have been a part of it at all. Like I felt like a better human coming out of it on the other side. It was that was a great one. I
Yeah,
mean,
that was one where you were like, how do I do this every day
Yeah.
for the rest of my
Yeah,
life?
seriously.
Because it just feels correct.
Yeah.
I think you sleep from 10 a.m. to noon.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not tradition to like go to Waffle House after the whole thing or anything like that?
No, we have our go-to like dinner spots that sometimes we'll go out and grab food and leave for 45 minutes just to let everyone have a little breather. But a lot of times we just ordered in. Usually, we have had some bad Thai happen to us before. One time, Michael left me high and dry when he ordered the extra spicy Thai and then got violently ill afterwards.
I was being adventurous and it backfired and I had to go home.
Yeah.
But I came back.
That's tough, man.
I came back after a lot.
Especially considering some studios don't really have much of a, facilities.
That's why I had to go home.
Oh man, yeah, that's true. There have been some serious issues with bathrooms on these sessions. Not gonna lie.
Like the studio that didn't have a bathroom and we had to pee in the
Oh,
woods
yeah.
and we had a female member on the session.
Yeah. I definitely went out into the woods early in the morning and got acquainted with nature.
Yeah, that was a good way to intro the female musician because we didn't realize that they didn't have facilities until we got there. We got there and we said, "Oh, by the way, I hope you're okay with using the woods as your bathroom."
Yeah, outside of
She was a champ.
Hey,
Yeah,
it's
she
like
was.
Bonnaroo.
She was, yeah. Well, outside of the studio door, there was just like a little, like a little tiny tree, and there was just a roll of toilet paper sticking on a limb there, and it was just inviting you to venture out and go take care of your business.
I felt pretty bad about that one.
I felt
Yeah.
pretty bad about that one too.
Well, that's one of the reasons why when I had my studio, kind of put this together, I insisted it's like you have to have the most powerful bathroom fan
most
in all of
definitely.
Nashville.
Yeah. And you
did.
Because I have no desire to live that other way.
No. When I turn that fan on, I feel like we're about to take off.
That's right. That's right. Got to do it.
Now all you need is like a rocket toilet. You know what I'm talking about? There's like
No,
industrial.
but I want one.
No, like
A
when
rocket
you
toi-
when you flush, it's just like
Oh, right. You're like it'll suck people down it.
yeah, exactly.
You got to watch out for that.
Yep, that's the goal.
That's
All
what
right.
you need.
Cool. Well, so we're nearing the jam session, but before we get to it, before we go there to the exciting jam session, tell us about what you guys are excited about right now. Like what's exciting in your world of making records, 24-hour records, making music, whatevs.
I'm really excited. I think this year I'm putting a big effort forth to be just writing more music and getting myself playing more music. I think that most engineers and producers are probably just writers and musicians who were like really frustrated when they would first go into studios and just like didn't know how to do stuff and wanted to be able to do it well.
Dude, you're singing my tune, man.
Oh, I
You're
know.
singing my tune.
Oh, that's totally me. I mean, when I was in high school, I played out at some of like the really bad clubs that, would let anyone go in and play. and would try to make some records and got so frustrated because I just didn't get it. But I liked like the idea of being able to do it, and it was interesting to me. But so I think that this year finally I'm going to try and do a little bit more of that. I've got a lot of friends that have been doing a lot of stuff with sync licensing, with music, just like writing shorter pieces, instrumental or otherwise, and just trying to reach out and find ways to make a little bit more of a living off of actually making music instead of like making other people's music. So I love both of those. But
have you set any kind of milestones for yourself this year or goals? Have you thought through how you want to do that, or you're still in the thinking process?
I'm still a little bit in the thinking process. I need to be farther along. I was talking with my wife about this the other day. She was asking me the same question, and I was like, I need a plan. So I'm going through that right now. I think I just need to start setting a schedule for myself. So I've got a couple days where I can just go into my studio where I'm consciously not working on anyone else's work and just doing my own thing. And like, I think that is
turn off your phone, turn off the internet.
I think for me, that's probably all I really need is just to be really conscious about it. But that is, at least for me, surprisingly difficult. So.
Going public with it on a podcast helps.
That's right. That's right. I need my accountable people.
And my personal one, because I share that same goal, and mine has been to start with free writing for 10 minutes every morning.
That's awesome. I feel like that's like the best way to start your day. Like you just immediately are going to feel better after that, even if everything you got was terrible. It doesn't matter. It's just like you have started your day by doing something creative and expressive, and I think that's awesome.
So I just started reading a book on Kindle. It's the author's name is Pat Pattison. I believe I'm saying that right. And his book is Writing Better Lyrics, and that's where I got the idea from. It's great. And the cool idea about doing the free writing for 10 minutes in the morning is that it wakes your brain up, so that your creative brain is already awake with you all day while you're doing the rest of your stuff.
It's like what breakfast does for your metabolism.
Exactly, dude. It's the most important creative meal of the day.
Absolutely. Get started early.
Dude, tell us what you're excited about.
Well, this is on a much less, I guess, personal note, but I didn't know that about you, Stephen. That's good.
I know. Michael and I don't get to spend as much time with each other anymore now that he's big wig over it. Production director.
Life is difficult, but I'm excited that as of last weekend, we have 4 episodes filmed and in the can, and that allows us the ultimate flexibility of, release strategies, marketing strategies, all that kind of stuff. So hopefully we can get some more, visibility to our project. Yeah. So that's kind of nerdy and lame, but
not really.
That helps me a lot.
Yeah.
That helps me sleep.
Yeah.
I don't mean to cut you off, Stephen, but I do want to ask you to follow through on that. After you tell us what you're going to say, can you tell us more about what marketing strategy means, like some of that stuff? Because I think that listeners are recording records. They need to market them. They're running a studio. They need to know how to market it and get their message out.
Yeah, absolutely.
If anyone's good at that, you can contact us.
Yeah, seriously. No, so we are super lucky along with the product that we have on hold. Mid-End just hired a new head of marketing, which is the first time we've had that position. So I'm really going to rely on her. But
for the record, Mid-End is our network that the YouTube network that 24 Hour Records is on. So they're our sugar daddies that help us and fund us, and Michael is their production director as well as being the kind of head of 24 Hour Records. Right.
But we do have a marketing genius behind us now. So hopefully that works. But what we've been doing in the past, it's a lot of social media strategy. We're highly focused on Instagram. It's what took off for us. We still keep up with Twitter, Facebook. We just started a Snapchat account. We have an email list. And we also, realistically, one of my goals for every time we release an episode is to just have a really good premiere partner. So that could be anything from an article written about us to a blog post to one of our tracks getting featured on like a music discovery site. Just recently, we got one of our tracks on a @Spotify official playlist. That's where my head's at. just per release, we've got great video content. We've got 3 songs. We've got a ton of photographs that are all available for all these partners to use. And just go find someone who wants to help share the story.
So, quick question for you related to that. The difference between the power of always having some content going out versus taking all those things that you're talking about and blasting it all at once.
Yeah, I mean, for us, Michael works incessantly getting everyone lined up to do these sessions. So for us, it's not really realistic to have a lot of like smaller content all coming out at once, just because just sheerly on like a budget standpoint, like our episodes are fairly expensive just to get everyone there and paying for all the costs and everything. And so like we don't have a lot of resources left to really make little content that we can like kind of send out there, but it would be awesome if we could, and maybe someday in the future when we have a bigger team and more resources, we can start exploring those options more. But yeah, it is kind of something, it's like it's different from going and doing a lot of small stuff at once, which I think is probably a really good way to build up like a base and a following by being able to just kind of constantly chime in to your audience. But I think the other way is if you can't do that because you have like bigger projects that are bigger budget things, then you kind of have to, like Michael was saying, build around those releases to where it's like, okay, you know, we're not going to put a release out if we don't have a couple like bigger blogs that aren't going to say something about it at least. And I think that's probably a pretty good strategy for, I mean, most people releasing records, because I'm sure all of us can testify to the amount of times we've worked with like an indie artist who was awesome, but they didn't know anything about the industry or the business. And then they put out their record and it falls totally flat and like 10 people listen to it because no one else out there was like talking about it. And so I think that like, especially for artists, like that's like one of your biggest resources is kind of like, if you have a project or something you want to release, is just working really hard and pushing that release date back if you have to like get in and like talk to people so that you can kind of make a splash when that happens.
Yeah, I think like the number one like killer I've seen in a lot of independent artists is they are tired of sitting on the project, so that they immediately assume that the audience is, you know, tired of waiting for the project, but in all like reality, they just need to like take a step back, chill out, and realize you only have one shot at a release.
Right, yeah.
You only have one shot at making like that firework go off. So you need to make sure it happens and not rush, even though it's really hard because you've written the songs, you've recorded the songs, you've mixed the songs, you've been sitting on the songs, and to you, it's the oldest news that you are so excited to get out.
Yeah.
And it's just not that way to a lot of the audience unless you're a giant artist.
Right. Yeah. And I feel like that's something like if you are like a small indie artist or anything like that, that's like the time when you put out something small, like you create like a smaller, like lower budget piece of content, whether it be even just like a quick YouTube video of yourself playing something new that you've written or something like that. Because if you do maybe have 500-600 people that are really into your music, like that's definitely not nothing. Like that's a good amount of people, and you don't want to alienate them.
Yeah, totally. YouTube your demos, YouTube your covers. Come up with a really cool, gimmick idea where it's like, I think one of the artists, what is his name? Nick Bullock. He's doing the 52 songs in 52 weeks.
Yeah.
Do something like that. That's how you get consistent content out.
Yeah.
But don't blow your your full length or something you've worked a long time on just because you're too anxious to put like the back end work on it.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So quick question. You talked about getting, what was the wording you used? Not sponsors, but you team up with a blog or somebody to post it. Premiere. So what would the equivalent be? I think the equivalent is you're going to release a record, you want a blog to write about it or something. But if you don't have those connections yet, where do you begin? Like what are some basic techniques for reaching out and connecting with premieres for releasing your record or even getting your studio and production work noticed?
Yes, certainly. It's tough. I mean, we are kind of lucky because the context of our project is unique enough that it's, we are releasing an EP essentially, but it kind of has that like storyline hook behind it where a lot of people have been a little bit more responsive than I think they would be if we were just like Michael and Stephen, the acoustic folk duo, something like that. But in all seriousness, I mean, like, yeah, even with that, all it is it's just me emailing people and trying to provide the best sales pitches possible. And it's worked a little bit. It hasn't worked in some other areas, but it's really just like a volume thing. I send out so many emails, and a lot of times they're largely the same thing, but to all these different outlets, they don't know any different.
Right.
Yeah. Stephen, let me pass the question over to you.
Yeah.
Can you get a premier partner, and can you make a big splash with your launch if your music totally sucks?
Oh, totally. Absolutely. Oh man, is that not evidenced by how much terrible music there is?
Can you get on the radio if your music sucks?
Oh,
yes.
Yeah. So here's the other thing that we kind of sidestepped in all this is you don't have to do any of these things if you just have a ton of money. You can just skip all these and pay people to do them for you. Unfortunately, most people don't have that. But I mean, I can say without a doubt that I have seen artists, and a lot of them were really good artists, so I'm like happy for them, but who had a lot of funding behind them. And I wouldn't say that they were any better than any of the other artists I knew or was working with at the time, but they had a bunch of money. And so they hired like an A-list publicist who just like all of a sudden their name is out there everywhere. And so, if you can do that, if you have, $100,000 to blow in a year, you can get your name out to a lot of people. But most of us don't have that luxury, so we got to kind of figure it out as we go. But,
well, so I think the takeaway message there, of course, is don't let telling yourself that your music's not good enough be your excuse for not doing that.
Definitely not.
No.
No.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
If you don't believe in it, how will a premier partner believe in it?
Right.
I love it. I think on that note, we should segue right into the jam session.
All right.
Deal.
Let's do it.
Hey everybody, it's Lid Shaw, and I want to thank you so much for listening to this episode of Recording Studio Rockstars. I really appreciate you, and I really appreciate your time. And as a way of saying thank you, I've created a special mix tutorial just for you, Rockstars, totally free, called the Mix Master Bundle. With it, you get over 2 hours of detailed videos watching over my shoulder as I mix a song in my studio. Plus, I give you the free ebook that explains how I recorded the tracks. And you get downloadable multi-tracks so that you can practice your mixes, including the Pro Tools session file, using nothing but stock plugins in Pro Tools, all of which you would find in any other DAW, whether you're on Logic or Studio One or Reaper. Maybe you're struggling with trying to improve your mix technique, or maybe you just simply don't have access to multi-track files or can't record a full drum set in your studio. I wanted to give you a chance to create your own mixes from full drum kit, bass, and guitars recorded in my studio. The song is called American Winter, and it's off my instrumental record Skadoosh, and it's all available for you totally free right now. All you need to do to get it is text Mix Master Bundle to 33444, and I'll send it directly to your email. Again, that's Mix Master Bundle with no space to 33444, or you can go directly to mixmasterbundle.com, enter your email, and I'll send all the files directly to you. Thanks so much, Rockstars. We'll see you guys in the jam session. Cheers. All right, cool. We're back here at Recording Studio Rockstars. I'm Lid Shaw, and I'm here with Stephen Turney and Michael Hardesty from 24 Hour Records, and we're ready for the jam session. You guys ready to jam?
Definitely.
Born ready.
Born ready. Well, so tell us, Stephen, at the beginning of doing all this stuff, getting into recording, starting a business, even writing songs, what was holding you back?
Oh, definitely myself. Hands down. I mean, I probably would not be doing recording and production if Michael isn't as ambitious as he is and would wake me up super early when we were in college to go down to the studio to try and learn more. I mean, I'm someone who just constantly doubts myself and my work. So I think that that's something that has perpetually held me back, that is kind of just a daily thing. I have to convince myself that what I'm doing is like worth it, and that people, would like it.
Dig it. And then Michael, was Stephen also holding you back at the beginning?
No, I don't think so. I think what was holding me back might have been social skills. One of the fun parts about music and creativity is that it's generally better if there's more than one involved. So I had to spend a lot of time figuring out myself and then how to communicate to other people so that, I could talk to bands and get them in the studio and get them excited about working with me and all that good stuff. So that was a huge barrier for me, and I'm still working on it, but I think that's huge for a lot of people that are interested in music, and especially the technical aspect of music, because generally they are a little more, dare I say, nerdy. And sometimes you have to really work on how how your thoughts are relayed to other people.
Yeah, totally. I mean, especially if you like to do mixing and sitting in front of your computer or console for 12 hours straight working on, if that's like makes you happy, then you're probably an introvert, more
Right, so
often than not.
Makes it harder to meet new people and get all that
totally.
stuff going.
Yeah,
Totally.
You got to get out there.
Well, so Stephen, tell us, what was some of the best advice you received when you were starting out or along the way?
Oh, man. I don't know if I received this, but I'm sure that I did, and I should have been listening along the way. Something that I did not do that I wish I'd done was, as soon as I was out of school and was trying to make a living and working for myself, was to get some kind of other gig that would have a little bit of reliable money coming in. I mean, no matter what it is, waiting tables or whatever, something that's flexible enough to where you don't have to give up much if a big gig comes along, and that it doesn't eat up all your schedule, but that you can still make sure that like your rent and everything's coming in. Because I just rolled the dice on that for probably 2 years, and was always paycheck to paycheck, and it was super stressful for me, if nothing else. And it's hard to like go out there and try and get clients and do stuff and like negotiate rates and all those things if you're like just almost begging for work. It's really hard to like present yourself as like being like a really good producer and engineer, even if you believe that you are. It's so hard to do that if you, in the back of your mind, is like, if I don't get this gig, even if I just get like a couple $100 for something, then like I'm not gonna be able to pay my rent next week, So
Yeah, totally.
So I think that's something important that people should do.
Being hungry is good for drive, but being overly hungry makes it hard to drive straight, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
That was kind of a twisted analogy, twisted metaphor there. I'm full of those.
That was good.
So, Michael, what about you, man? What was some of the best advice you received?
Yeah, I think early on, a lot of people, actually, ironically, not in the music production field, just kept reminding me not to undervalue yourself, because a lot of the toughest situations that I've gotten into in the studio really do come down to those like rate negotiations. And, a lot of gigs that I took that ended so poorly, it would have been so much better if I would have just said, you know what, you are trying to undervalue me. It's literally not worth my time to do this. And I, of course, was never asking for a king's ransom at all. It was just like there's a bare minimum to what someone's time is worth.
Yeah.
So.
Isn't it always best to negotiate that stuff at the end after you've done all the work?
Yeah, that's what we always do.
Yeah. Just sign contracts when there's tons of opportunity and money on the table.
No, it is hard, like especially if you don't have a lot of work yet and you don't have a lot of money, like because you just want to be working, and there's a fear that, as soon as we start talking about this, it's not gonna like there's gonna be tense, or maybe they won't end up working with me. But it's like there's nothing worse than getting halfway through a project or more and then starting to talk about money and stuff, because inevitably you start getting bitter about all the work you're putting in and like not knowing what you're getting, or you put in way too much time for the amount of money that you're going to be getting from the project. Not that like, the money is everything on a project, but when it's your living, you got to make enough to like scrape by, if nothing else. So, Yeah, dude. No,
Yeah,
I hear you.
another inspirational quote that goes along with this whole thing is either do it for full price or do it for free.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
good
I would
point.
way rather be doing something for free and just like know that like those are the terms and I'm really into it, or like otherwise just not doing it at all. Because like, yeah, anywhere in the middle there, I feel like you're going to get really bitter really quickly.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I like that concept of saying, this is my rate, this is what my value is, this is what it's worth. And if you guys don't have that, then I have the opportunity to give you something. And I'm just going to give you a session and let you know that you're actually getting this bonus, this free extra day or half day or whatever it is.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
As opposed to just saying, I'll just cut my rate down.
Yeah.
I'll devalue myself. And then they complain about it at the end anyway.
Yeah. Can I give you one more weird piece of advice?
Yeah, please do.
All right. Bill Vorndick told us this in school. He said, never say no to a gig. And what he meant by that was price yourself out of a gig. So even if it was the worst condition with the worst artist on the worst day, never say no. Just tell them what your rate is and make it absolutely ridiculous. So if someone who you absolutely don't like wants to work with you on Thanksgiving Day, don't tell them no. Just tell them it'll be $12,000 or whatever,
Right.
just something.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you don't say no. So either A, you're making $12,000, or B, they said no.
Yeah. I remember my brother was telling me that story about a friend he had who had gone through that experience. He said when he got sick of doing whatever his particular gig was, he just kept moving his rate up and up and up and up. Of course, his story was that he didn't end up pricing himself out of it. People just kept paying it. And so his rate just kept going up and up.
That's awesome.
And up.
Yeah.
But
There
then
you go.
you're,
So maybe
but then
that's
you're
a good
rich.
thing. Then you're rich. You just aren't at home with your family on Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a definitely,
Use discretion.
yeah.
right.
Yeah. For
All
sure.
right. So next question, fellas. Steven, how about a favorite recording tip, hack, or secret sauce?
Okay.
Or just anything that's cool.
Yeah,
Something
yeah,
that
yeah.
people could use right now.
Oh man, don't want to give away my best one, but
Just give away your second best one.
okay, second best one. All right. I know a lot of people probably do this, but I love doing this. Is just a lot of parallel compression on drums when mixing. Like I'll usually set up like 3 separate auxes.
What's paralyzed compression?
My parallelized compression, man. So yeah, that's when say you have like a snare drum and you have that on one track, and then you create another track or another aux send, and then on that second track you have like an 1176 cranking it, and it's like really hitting it hard, and you blend those two signals together, so you still get the nice good transient of the like snare from the original recording, but then you get the sustain and the like snap from that compression that you've added in underneath it. It's a good way of being able to get away with a lot of compression without it really sounding like you're using a ton of compression.
Yeah, so the second track, the one that's super compressed, which I like to call that my slam track.
Yeah. No, that's it.
It's
No.
a sound that you would never want to use, right? Like by itself, it's just like way over the top. or
Right,
something, It's
totally.
like absurd sounding,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah.
Cool, great tip.
Yeah.
I love that one. You can't give away paralyzed compression too much. That's what I think. It's great.
No, I mean, it's just something like when someone finally showed me like how it worked, I was just like, oh my God, like that, it's just so much better. Like everything just starts sounding better when you can start experimenting with that.
Well, I can't say when this episode's going out, and so I can't tell you if this is a spoiler alert or not. But one of my guests on another show, Bob Olson, will reveal to us how parallel compression was invented at Motown Records.
Oh man.
I will be listening.
Actually,
to that.
maybe that wasn't entirely true. He may have borrowed it from classical, but it's been around for a long time.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, that makes sense.
So, Michael, a favorite recording tip, hack, or secret sauce, or a funny joke?
Oh, well, definitely not a funny joke. One hack that I always really enjoy is realistically to use the room and use the bleed. Like so much of modern recording is ridiculously isolated, and I mean that definitely gives you a sound, but I think it sounds so much cooler when you got some instruments in the room. Like why not have a bass amp with the drummer? Like that kind of blend, it can really work to your advantage.
Can I do that in my Logic Pro virtual instruments on my laptop?
Well, Yeah,
man,
you got me there.
You just got to open them all at the same time, and then mic your MacBook speakers,
And then just name them wrong. Just give them different names.
Yeah,
audio 001.
Yeah, if you're not recording a band, that's going to be kind of tough. But
All right on. Well, so Stephen, how about hipping us to a favorite hardware tool in the studio? Something that when you go in and you have this thing with you, it seems to always make your sessions better.
I think that my go-to thing that I always try to have on most sessions is a distressor, just as like kind of a main signal chain to go to. I mean, it just can do so many different kinds of compression, and I don't even necessarily know exactly how I mean, I'm not like a tech geek or anything. I don't know how electronics or circuitry works or anything. I just kind of press buttons on it until it sort of starts sounding the way I want it to. But man, you can just pull off so much stuff with that one box, like so many different flavors and tones. And so I love having that on a session with me. So
It is. It's like protection from the sun.
yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
You could fly directly into the heart of the sun with a distressor and you'd be totally cool.
That's right. You just set that thing on nuke, you're good to go.
Yep.
I know I believe there's a plug-in version of the distressor that is out and floating around now too. I have not had a chance to
I
use
haven't
it yet.
used it. I think it's a Universal Audio one, which
Oh man, those guys.
hopefully this year I'll be jumping into that world, but I'm saving, man.
Nice. Michael?
Yeah, I'm a AEA R84 fan.
You are.
I don't know. I've never had a mic that I mean, we've done it before on 24 Hour Records. That is the overdub mic.
Is that a Wibbin mic?
It is a Wibbin mic. Yeah.
Nice.
I don't even know what it is. I mean, it's not the most expensive ribbon mic in the world. It's probably not the nicest, but for some reason it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And it stacks really well.
It does stack really, really
Because
well.
we've done almost entire overdub sessions on that mic, and you can float it from guitar to vocal to auxiliary percussion, and at the end of the day, you've got 20 tracks that all sound amazing together. So
yeah.
Does it have a particularly dark top end to it? Is that part of what makes it work for overdubs? Is that when you're stacking things, they don't fight for that high frequency?
so.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's a fairly dark top end. It's a pretty dark mic. You've got to high pass it like pretty hard on just about everything you use it on. But I mean, yeah, you can like if you have a bunch of vocals and you run them all through, or you use that mic for all of them, and just like put them all mono in the mix and listen to it. It's just like, it sounds like a Beatles group vocal with that like kind of, I don't know, whatever that sound is, that's what it sounds like to me.
That's where I'm going.
Yeah,
Nice.
no, totally.
Okay, pop quiz, guys. Can you press the red button? Can you flip the plus 48 switch? And can you send phantom power to that mic while you're using it?
Oh, man. Good questions. I've heard so many different answers. I try. The thing that I heard last that I believe is that if you have it plugged in before any phantom is sent down the line, and if you were to switch it on, you're probably not going to get like much of that pop going to the ribbon. It's only like if you're unplugging it while it's active and hot.
Maybe I should rephrase the question. Should you do any of those things to that mic?
No, you shouldn't. You shouldn't. Sometimes you gotta roll the dice, though. I mean, here's the thing I think about all the time with all that stuff. So many of those old consoles that people used in like the 60s and 70s, all of them had phantom spitting out of them all of the time. And they use those mics all the time. Mm-hmm. And did they ruin those mics? Very possible. But I mean, people did that stuff all the time. So I don't know what the answer is on that.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Do you think that the whole, so let's leap this forward to those who are listening, rock stars. The idea is that you do not want to send phantom power to a ribbon mic. That's the message.
It's not ideal. No.
Then there's this whole dialogue going on.
Only if you know what you're
whether it really
doing.
hurts it or not.
Right.
If it's yours, you can try. If it's someone else's, please don't do it.
Don't do that.
There you go. That's a good answer. All right. So, Michael, a favorite software tool in the studio?
Anything Sound Toys.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I've had the chance to work with UAD They're amazing. I'm not rich enough to afford UAD, but Sound Toys is really, really cost effective, and their entire package. I mean, some of their delays and their reverbs do things that I've never imagined per se.
Yeah.
Like they kind of bridge that gap from technical to creative, if that makes sense, where you are using a piece of, gear, even though it's virtual. And it starts to make you think about what else could I do with this? So that's like that whole package is unbelievable.
Have you found that you have to give yourself extra time to go in and just play around with all the settings and those presets to really begin to even know what they do?
That Sound Toy stuff especially. I mean, it's so cool, but there are so many parameters that like I almost always just start by like doing some of the presets because I don't even know what it can do like until I start looking and seeing what's possible in it, and then I can start tweaking stuff.
They're like the presets that are shown to you originally, and then on most of them they have like the advanced settings, which go even deeper.
I know, it's crazy how fine-tuned you can do this. It's
insane. I mean, but you're absolutely right. I rarely get to those. It's just, I mean, the presets are so good.
No, I know.
All right. So again, Rockstars, we are giving you permission and encouragement right now to set aside time to go into your studio and do nothing but play around with the settings on those delays. Don't wait till you're in the middle of a session and feel pressure to come up with the right answer. Just go in and just goof around, see what they can do.
Yeah, totally. You got to do that. Then you save your own presets that you have. So you just pull them up. And then everyone's like, oh, that's the coolest delay.
Yep.
And it's like, I know.
You guys got any hot tips for saving presets? Is there like something that people need to know about how and where to do it, or do you just kind of wherever it puts it is fine usually?
I usually just have wherever it puts it, but I would say if you ever have to like change over your whole rig, to track those things down and make sure you know where they are, so that when you transfer and like upgrade everything, you still have your stuff.
I know Steven's a fan of this, and I double down on this. When you have a preset, name it something ridiculous, so that you know exactly what it does, and you know that it's yours, and it's not, Sound Toys or UAD or anything like that.
Yeah, all of my my snare drum samples that I go to all the time are named after cuts of meat.
Yeah.
Come on, give us a couple.
Also, the main one, the best one, is the beefy as hell snare. And then there's like the one that's like still pretty like thick, but not quite. It's got a little more topping. Is the thin sliced beef.
Nice.
And it just goes on and on.
Don't you have like Big Thwack Daddy or something?
Oh, I got the it's something like the big ass Tom or the big ass 808, something like that.
What about what does the Salisbury steak sound like?
I haven't gotten there yet, man. I'll have to make that one. Maybe that's like
super
a snare
creamy
with like a sizzle ride on top of it on the sample.
Yeah, the snare stroganoff.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So, Stephen, share with us a tip or a resource for the business side of doing what we do.
Oh, man.
What do you do?
Okay. For me, actually, most of the business things I got from you, Lidge. I stole, as you saw.
Man, I'm sorry about that, dude.
No, you have you cycle through so many I can't keep up, but like some of the good ones, like I was a big fan and still am of that FreshBooks accounting stuff. That is just like, I hate doing accounting. I'm terrible at it. It's like the worst. And I always lose track of stuff. And that thing is just nice, and it's not that expensive, and it works well enough for me. I'm sure bigger companies and stuff, I mean, maybe they have other things you can do through them, but I mean, that's just good because I can always look. I can see like how much money and invoices are floating out there, and like who I need to call if I don't have a check in and stuff. It helps me stay organized a lot better.
Yeah. So once again, that's freshbooks.com, I believe is the website, but I'll include a link to that in the show notes. And when I first I probably insisted that you get that.
Well,
did you curse my name at the beginning?
Lidge made me get the contractor version a couple times when I was working for him. And so, but then I was impressed, like with, especially for me, like if I'm out on a gig and there's something like, parking or you have to go buy something at a studio for something like the studio should own, you know, and like you can just snap a picture of it and then just invoice that to them with like the rest of your invoice. So
yeah, totally.
it's just, it's really nice to be able to do little things like that. So
expenses.
yeah, it's really easy to go broke paying for things yourself that other people should be paying for. So.
I find that the handiest part of having that FreshBooks account is that I can do some work, I can set a timer and keep track of it, I can invoice it, and then I can forget about it, knowing that if next week I look at it and it's like, oh, it's still unpaid, you don't have to think twice about it. You just hit the button and send it.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't have to think
nice.
about composing a carefully worded email to remind somebody. You just let it show up from their website or whatever. You know?
Lidge, was this podcast brought to us by FreshBooks or something?
Not yet, but it will be. Could be soon.
Okay, all right.
FreshBooks, you hear that? You listening? So, Michael, what about you, man? What's a good tip?
I use a service called Todoist. All it is a to-do list, but it's free, and it helps me when I wake up at 4 a.m. and I remember that one thing that I need to do tomorrow that I hadn't remembered, and I just type it in there, and that's it.
That's huge, man.
That's all I need. I mean, yeah, it's really simple.
Michael's all about the to-do lists.
I'm all about the to-do list,
great.
and unfortunately, I wake up at 4 a.m. more often than I'd like to admit. So
I know, I totally
where I'm
understand. Before we had to-do lists and smartphones, I remember one day I discovered, I was like, wait a minute, I'm just going to put a pad of paper and a Sharpie by the bed.
Yeah.
Because then you wake up in the middle of the night, you think of something, you just write it down, and it's like, it's gone, let go of it,
Mm-hmm.
It's a good tip.
No, that's definitely what I do, but that is Todoist.com. Oh, it's amazing.
And if Todoist needs to give Michael things, they can find him at the link in this podcast.
Yeah,
probably.
if you want to give me a premium membership, we're here.
Give him a shout out. All right, cool. So, guys, let's get into the hypothetical question of the podcast here. Stephen, you're starting over.
Okay.
Somehow, well, I don't want to paint some terrible, horrible, tragic picture, but you're starting over and you need some sort of setup to start recording, something simple. Mm-hmm. You're in a strange town. You don't know anybody. You need to find people to record.
Gotcha.
And you got to make ends meet while you're doing this, so you don't have to quit recording. Mm-hmm. What would you do? What do you recommend?
Ooh, that's hard. I think for me, I would probably, as far as finding people to work with, I would just start going out to a lot of like the local clubs that are playing the bands and the music that I like, and forcing myself to go up and talk to people, which I'm not good at. But whenever you do that, usually end up having some luck, getting some work. I would probably also like go start or join a band, because there are so many producers and engineers and stuff who get killer gigs. And I'm just like, how is that guy getting that gig? And it's because they went on tour with some other guy in some other band. And like, they're probably a fine engineer or producer, but they do, maybe like a record or two a year. Like they're not doing it full time, but they're still able to get really great gigs when they're going out and getting them. So that would be probably the biggest thing about trying to find work. And as far as gear and stuff, I would probably just get a laptop, and depending on how much money I had, if I had enough, I would get probably one of those little API 4-packs and roll with that. And
what is the API 4-pack?
It's a 3124. Yeah, and it's just a box of 4 pre's that are just 4 great API pre's that sound really good, that you can use on pretty much everything and get away with it. And I would probably do that for a lot of it, and just, I don't know, probably buy whatever interface I could afford that had the best ratings at that time. There's so many of those coming out that I can never keep track of them anymore. But
yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, I'd probably just do that. Handful of mic stands, and just try and go from there, and just try to be able to be mobile, not relying on needing any space. Because I think most of the time for me, like with my first couple of years starting off, I mean, I can't count the amount of times I packed up my entire rig and took it someplace else.
Yeah,
so, anyway.
Totally. I think that's a
and
great tip.
A good pair of headphones.
All right, Michael, how about you?
Yeah, got to echo Stephen. Go to a bunch of shows. Go sit at coffee shops. Go out to all of the places where creative people are. And that's definitely shows, art exhibits, indie movie premieres, stuff like that. Go talk to people. That comes back to the whole idea of gaining social skills and just like, no matter how comfortable or uncomfortable it is, getting out there. In terms of gear, I've actually been thinking about this myself right now because I do want to become more mobile maybe and get like a UAD twin and like, you know, not even worry about the idea of a pre into a converter, but just get, you know, one of the boxes that we're all seeing right now, which are they are the pre and the converter at the same time. They're fair, you know, a lot of those are fairly clean sounding, and then they just rely on, you know, the instrument, the room, and the microphone to kind of give you your tone or your color. And then I'd probably have to, you know, sell something so I get my R84. I've got one now, but if I had to start over, I got to get another one. So that's what I'm going to do.
Dude, that is a time-honored dilemma, though. It's like, because just when you were asking me that, it's like, okay, well, do I just get something and try to get a bunch of pre's so I can do a bunch of tracks all at once? Or do I just like go spend all my money on like one nice preamp and one nice microphone? And I think it depends a lot on what kind of work you're doing. If you want to record bands, you just need to get a bunch of pre's.
Yeah.
If you want to do like a pop record, like, and a bunch of stuff in your computer, you should probably like get the best pre and mic and converter you can afford.
Yeah, get that vocal chain, right?
Yeah, basically.
Yep.
Yeah, totally. Because if that's all you need, then like, I mean, there are producers that have, you know, dozens of Grammys that, you know, probably just own like one mic, one pre, and like one converter, and it's like they do everything else in their computer.
Yeah,
that's all they need.
That change is like $20,000.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's amazing.
Right.
All right, so dozens of Grammys and huge success. Tell us, Stephen, what is the one thing, most important thing that our listeners can do to become a rock star of the recording studio themselves?
I think just work really hard. And I mean, I feel like the one thing that I notice between people who are really good at recording and producing and the people that aren't are the people that have like stayed up all night or all day, like day after day after day, just playing around with their like tools that they have and learning them inside and out, so that like when you're on a session, like immediately you know the answer to whatever issue has come up. Because like nothing is worse than being on a session and like there's a problem and it stalls the whole thing and like it just like derails everything. And then you look unprofessional, you don't know what's going on, and then it's just like it kills everyone's mood, everyone's vibe. It's just all down the toilet. So
nice, man.
That's it.
Should I stop the podcast right there on the word toilet?
Cut it.
Yeah,
cut it hard.
Killed it.
So, Michael, what about you, man? What is the single most important thing that our listener can do to become a rock star of the recording studio?
Yeah, keep your musical ties running. Like, and I regret that a ton myself of not. I mean, I don't play as much as I want to. At the end of the day, when you're in the recording studio, what are you doing? You're making music. So, you know, don't act like it's just the musician's job to make that music. Be a good musician yourself and listen to good music yourself, so that when you come into the recording studio, you have the most knowledge about music that you possibly can.
Yeah.
And that's the end goal, right? Like we're all like trying to be creative. We're all trying to make cool music. So educate yourself in music, and you do that by listening to good music and playing good music.
Yeah, totally. Like if you go into a session and there's a song and then, you know, you guys pull together to have an awesome arrangement and it just feels really cool. I mean, you could be recording it on the microphone on your computer, and if it like is just really cool, like it might sound like kind of lo-fi or whatever, but it'll come across cool and like people will like that.
Yeah, it's still gonna be cool. You can't stop cool.
That's cool.
Literally impossible.
Definitely gonna end on that note. You can't stop cool. Guys, on 3. 1, 2, 3.
You can't stop cool.
Peace out. Stephen, Michael, thank you so much for joining us
Thanks
on
for having
Recording
us.
Studio
Thanks for having
Rockstars.
us.
Can you let our listeners know how they can find you guys? Learn more about 24-Hour Records.
Yeah, you should just go to 24hrrecords.com. Those two R's get slapped next to each other. There's no dash. It looks weird. We know. We tried every different way to get around that. There's no way it was happening.
Yeah, and you can find us on pretty much every social site. And again, it's just at 24HR Records. That's it.
That's it.
Yep. So you can find us on Instagram, Facebook,
Go
Twitter,
find
Snapchat now.
Oh, man, you're getting
I didn't
getting
even know
down.
we were doing that.
Yeah.
Hang with the kids.
Yeah, right. We're trying
Hip with the kids.
trying to relate to the 14-year-olds of the world. You're doing a poor job.
You're not allowed to stay up all night yet. Well, maybe at about 14 you might.
You found Mountain Dew at that point.
Yeah, you found Mountain Dew. You've had your first slumber party.
Yeah.
Stayed up all night.
I remember that time well. It was crazy.
I'm not describing a very rock and roll childhood, am I?
That's okay, Lich.
Pretty safe.
We know you got cool after 18.
Yeah, thanks.
You can't
man.
stop
Appreciate it,
cool.
guys. Thank you.
Can't
You
stop
can't
cool.
stop cool. We were supposed to end on that note. All right. Thank you, guys. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you around the studio.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Peace. Thanks so much for listening to Recording Studio Rockstars. If you enjoyed the show and want to help make it better, please leave a rating and review on iTunes to help reach more people. You can click directly over to iTunes or go to recordingstudiorockstars.com/review for an easy explanation. And if you want more free content, all you have to do is text RS Rockstars to 33444. Again, that's RS Rockstars to 33444, and I'll keep you in the loop with articles, videos, and podcast updates. And I'll let you know about any upcoming giveaway offers, all totally free. Thanks for listening. I'm Lid Shaw, and this is Recording Studio Rockstars. Now, go make great music.